Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Juvenile Gurukul presents Christmas to Full Marks of 40 Days of Board Prep Secrets. And I'm Kisholadash and I'll be helping you guys with the English scoring map CBSE Class 10 Supplementary Reader scoring tips. So let's not waste any time and jump back to the topic. Okay, so here we have the section wise weightage of every single thing. Like we have discussed in our earlier videos, so we would skip this time. And this one we have also discussed this slide also, so we have slide this off. And we have discussed this one also, the marks distribution. Okay. Next up is the stories what we have in the supplementary reader. Okay, so we have the tramp of surgery, the thief story, the midnight visitor, a question of trust, footprints without feet, the making of a scientist, the necklace, Bholi, and the book that saved the earth. So let's begin our explanation on each of these topics. Come on. Okay, so first of all we have the tramp of surgery. So the tramp of surgery, as we all know, this is a story about a veterinary doctor and a dog whose name is Tritsky, right? So let's see. James Herriot's. So James Herriot has penned this fabulous story, The Tramp of Surgery. Okay, so let's start. James Herriot's story tells of Tritsky Woo. So Tritsky Woo, an excessively pampered small dog owned by wealthy Mrs. Pumphrey. So wealthy Mrs. Pumphrey. So Mrs. Pumphrey has a lot of money to raise her only pet, whose name is Tritsky Woo. Okay. Tritsky is spoiled with rich food and attention. So Tritsky is spoiled with rich food and attention. He becomes dangerously overweight. He has bloated a lot and he is also a lazy one. When Tritsky falls ill and nearly dies, so this is a very important thing, nearly dies of obesity related problems. The veterinarian Harriet insists on strict treatment. Okay, so the vet Harriet insists on strict treatment. Now, Tritsky is brought to Harriet's surgery for treatment and stays in the kennels under controlled care. Okay, so where was Tritsky taken to? Tritsky was brought to Harriet's surgery for treatment and stays in the kennels under controlled care. Okay, so this is the important thing. Now, Harriet feeds him a simple controlled diet and refuses Mrs. Pumphrey's rich offerings of eggs and cream. Okay, so Mrs. Pumphrey, who is basically the mother of Tritsky Woo, as she was taking care of Tritsky just like her son or her child. So she used to give a lot of eggs and creams to Tritsky for his meal. Okay, now let's see. Initially, Tritsky is miserable, moaning in his cage. So Tritsky is miserable and he was moaning in his cage. By the third day, he shows life. He eats eagerly and resumes playing. Okay, so what happens after the third day or during the third day or on the third day is that by the third day he shows life. He eats eagerly and resumes playing. Okay. After recovering full health, Tritsky is returned to Mrs. Pumphrey, now slim and energetic. So how was Tritsky returned to Mrs. Pumphrey? He was a slim and an energetic dog. Okay. Before that, he was an obese dog. Okay. We have to remember that. He plays and runs about energetically, surprising everyone with his lively behavior, completely transformed. Okay, so Tritsky has surprised everyone with his lively behavior, which is now transformed completely due to Mr. Harriot or Dr. Harriot, who is also the author of this story. Okay, we have to remember that. Now, Mrs. Pumphrey happily declares the recovery a triumph of surgery. Okay, so this is very important. A triumph of surgery, not realizing it was diet and exercise that healed him. So what has healed Trichki? It was the diet and exercise. Okay, so we have to remember this also. So whatever question comes from this chapter, we have to remember one thing, that this story is all about a veterinary doctor, Mr. James Harriet, and the dog, an obese dog, Trichki Woo. Okay, so you have to remember this. I hope it's clear to every one of you. Now please take a screenshot. It will help you all through your boards. Okay, I think it's done. Now let's continue with the second topic, which is the thief story. Okay, so the thief story is a story which we have read, right? Every one of us has read this story. Okay, so this is a very interesting story. Let's start. In Ruskin Bond's story. Okay, so written by Ruskin Bond, a very famous Indian author, right? We have to remember his name, Ruskin Bond. Okay. So in Ruskin Bond's story, Hari Singh, a petty thief, meets a young writer. Okay, so meets a young writer named Anil. Okay, so we have to remember these names. Okay, one is Hari Singh and the other one is Anil, the characters of this whole story. After a wrestling match. Okay, so they met after a wrestling match. Hari flattered and charmed Anil into befriending him. Okay, so they became good friends. Okay, so they became very good friends after Hari Singh met with Anil and he came to Anil's house, which will be talk later. Okay, that's it. So at Anil's guest house room, they stay overnight. So where did Hari Singh stay that night? At Anil's guest house room. Okay. Hari pretends to help by sweeping and even falls asleep to gain trust. Okay. Over the next few days, Hari turns out to be a good companion. Okay. Now let's see what Hari does actually. Okay, from here. Hari pretends to help by sweeping and even falls asleep to gain trust. Okay. Now, over the next few days, Hari turns out to be a good companion of Anil, who was a writer. Okay. So, Hari used to cook and he used to clean, and Anil teaches him to read. Okay. So, as we all know that Hari Singh was illiterate. He never learned how to study, how to write, or he cannot do even simple mathematics. Okay. So, it was Anil who taught him all those things. Okay. Now, Anil begins paying Hari a small allowance. Okay. Hari a small allowance. Now, we all know what allowance is, right? Allowance, if you guys don't know, please let us know in the comment section. Okay. Secretly, Hari plots to steal Anil's savings. Okay. Now, as we all know that Hari Singh is a petty thief. Now, if Hari Singh is a thief, it will be his default setting to go and rob someone, right? So, Hari Singh plans or plots to steal Anil's saving. Okay. Hari plots to steal Anil's saving. One night when Anil is sleeping, Hari takes the bundle of money hidden by Anil. Okay. So one night when Anil was sleeping, as he was a writer, he used to go from his home to the publication, right? So he used to be very tired. He came to his room and he fell asleep. And after that, Hari Singh tried to rob him out of his money. Okay. So this is the line. Let's see. One night when Anil is sleeping, Hari takes the bundle of money hidden by Anil. Okay. Now, as he runs off, rain soaks the stolen notes. Okay, so when Hari Singh stole Anil's money and he was running off for his life, stealing the money, rain started to happen. Okay, so the rain soaked every single note that Hari Singh had stolen from Anil. Okay, now what happened? Feeling guilty and seeing the soaked money, Hari returned it to where he found it quietly and quietly leaves without Anil's knowledge. Okay, so Hari, he just put the money over there from where he had stolen all those money. Okay, and he left without Anil's knowledge. Okay, without Anil's knowledge. The next morning, Anil calmly offers Hari a small payment for his help and thanks him, even offering to hire him regularly. So what happened the next morning is that Anil calmly offers Hari a small payment for his help and thanks him, even offering to hire him regularly. Okay, so Anil wanted to hire Hari Singh. Anil wanted to hire Hari Singh despite knowing that Hari Singh was a petty thief. Okay. Now, realizing that Anil knew of the theft and still treated him kindly, Hari is overwhelmed by forgiveness and friendship. Okay. So, Hari Singh knew that Anil knows about the theft, but still Anil was helping Hari Singh, right? That's why Hari was overwhelmed by forgiveness and friendship. I hope it's clear. So please take a screenshot. Okay. Now let's move on to the next topic. Okay. Or the next chapter, which is the Midnight Visitor. Okay. So Midnight Visitor is a detective or a spy story, right? Here we have Ozable, Fowler, and many more. Okay, let's see. So this detective story by Robert Arthur. Okay. Robert Arthur features Ozable, a secret agent. So Ozable, who is a secret agent, posing as a middle-aged man in Paris. Okay, middle-aged man in Paris. And a writer named Fowler. Okay, so what is the name of the writer? Writer named Fowler. Fowler admires Ozable's reputation, but it surprised Ozable's unassuming appearance. Okay. So basically, Fowler is very much. Actually, Fowler admires Ozable's reputation. Okay, Ozable's reputation, but Fowler was surprised by Ozable's appearance because he never looked like a spy or a secret agent. Okay, but is surprised by Ozable's unassuming appearance. Okay. Suddenly, a man named Max. Okay, a man named Max. So, what are the characters that we are getting in this story? First, we had Ozable, right? Ozable. Then we have Fowler. And the third one that we got is Max. Okay. So these are the three characters that we have in this topic. Okay. So Max is a hitman. So do we know who is a hitman? Please don't say Rohit Sharma. He is not that hitman over here. The hitman over here means someone who assassins someone. Okay. I hope it's clear. Please don't write Rohit Sharma in your examinations. Okay. Let's move on. So Max, a hitman, sneaks into Ozable's apartment. Okay. So Max, who is a hitman, he sneaks into Ozable's apartment. Max armed with a pistol. So Max is armed with a pistol and a dagger. Okay. So Max was armed with a pistol and a dagger. Demand secret papers that Ozable has. So what was the demand of Max? The demands of Max were secret papers that Ozable has. Now, unfazed Ozable treats Max as a mere annoyance. Okay, so Ozable treated Max as a mere annoyance. Okay, a mere annoyance. So when Ozable causes a noise, Max thinks the police have arrived. Ozable calmly tells him a squad is outside with drawn bayonets and that he must surrender his documents. So what does Ozable say? Ozable calmly tells him a squad is outside with drawn bayonets and that he must surrender his documents. Okay. Now panicking, Max runs out of the window onto an imaginary balcony and falls out of sight. Okay. So what was the instant reaction of Max? Panicking. Max started to panic over here. Okay. So Max runs out the window onto an imaginary balcony. Okay. So this is very important. An imaginary balcony and falls out of sight. Right. The door then opens to reveal only Ozable's assistant Henry. So we have another character over here, Henry, who is the assistant of Ozable. Okay, bringing a tray of food. Okay, so Henry, the assistant of Ozable, was bringing a tray of food only. Okay, but Max, the hitman, he thought that the police has arrived to arrest him. Okay, now Ozable has tricked Max. As we all know, Ozable has tricked Max into fleeing. Okay, we all know the meaning of fleeing, right? The midnight visitor. Okay, so now the midnight visitor is quietly disposed of by Ozable's wit. Okay, is quietly disposed of by Ozable's wit and humor. Okay, not humor over here, but his wit. The tone is suspenseful turned witty. Ozable's clever deception saves him, and the story ends with humor as Fowler sees Ozable refuse even the newspaper, having already solved the crisis. Okay, so we can take up this line and write it in our answers. Like, the tone is suspenseful turned witty. Okay, so at the beginning of the story, by the beginning of the story, the tone of the story was a suspense thriller, was a suspense story, right? But after that, it had turned itself into a wittier one. So this is the thing. Ozable's clever deception. So this is the particular line which we can use as a concluding line or use as a conclusion of our answers. So Ozable's clever deception saves him, and the story ends with humor as Fowler sees Ozable refuse even the newspaper. Okay, the newspaper having already solved the crisis. I hope we are done over here. Please take a screenshot. Okay. So if you guys have any confusion, any issues regarding any of the topics that we are covering today or we have covered earlier, please let us know in the comment section. We also have our Gmail also. Okay. Now let's move on to the next topic. Okay. So the next topic is a question of trust. Okay. So this was written by Sir Victor Canning. Okay. So a question of trust by Victor Canning is a story of irony and deception. Okay. So this is a story of irony and deception. Actually, this particular line, it's a very beautiful and a very good introductory line. Okay, so we can use this line in any of the questions that come in your exam. Okay, which can appear in your exam. Okay, we can just start by writing this line. A question of trust by Victor Canning is a story of irony and deception. Okay, and deception is the morale of the story. How you cannot get decepted by anyone, or how can a smarter guy than you can deceive you in any of the situations. Okay, let's start. So Horace Danby. Horace Danby is a respectable locksmith who secretly robs wealthy houses to support his love for rare books. Okay, so Horace Danby is a respectable locksmith. Okay, so he's a respectable locksmith who secretly robs people. Okay, robs wealthy people in order to support his love for old books or good books. Okay, he used to love reading a lot, but he had no money in him, no money to him to buy those books. Okay, so that's why he used to rob wealthy people. Okay, so secretly robs wealthy houses to support his love for rare books. While attempting a robbery at Shotover Grange. Okay, so we have to remember this name, at Shotover Grange. He encounters a clever young woman who claimed to be the wealthy lady of the house. Listen very carefully, who claimed to be the. Okay. So she was a self-proclaimed lady of the wealthy house. Okay. Now, she threatens to call the police unless Horace opens the safe. Okay, so she threatens Horace by the name of the police, and she was so smart that she somehow managed to let Horace open the safe for her. Okay. It's the safe. Tricked by her, Horace complies and is careful not to take anything. Okay, so tricked by her. Tricked by her, Horace complies and is careful not to take anything. And he was very careful not to take anything. Later, he is arrested when the police find his fingerprints at the scene, a setup orchestrated by the woman. Okay, but okay, so this time Horace was not guilty. Okay, he was an innocent. He didn't rob anything. He didn't take any of the jewelries or money or whatever was there inside the safe. But still he was caught. Let's see how. So from here, later he is arrested when the police find his fingerprints at the scene. Okay, a setup orchestrated by the woman. Okay, so this was a setup, basically a setup which was orchestrated by the woman. Nobody believes his story because the real lady Brakenstall, is much older. Okay, so the real lady of that wealthy house was much older than the lady who showed up to Horace Danby. Okay, is much older. Now Horace is sent to prison, reflecting that his greatest weakness was his misplaced trust in the woman. Okay, so he was sent to prison because he had a trust full of he had misplaced his trust in the woman. Okay, I hope it's clear. Please take a screenshot and we will move further on. Moving on, we have footprints without feet. Okay, so this is written by H.G. Wells. Okay, so this story is written by H.G. Wells and it features Griffin. Okay, it features Griffin, an invisible man. So Griffin is basically the protagonist of this story. Griffin, a scientist, so Griffin was also a scientist, finds a formula to turn himself invisible. Okay, like Mr. India. So he finds a formula to turn himself invisible. Okay. One rainy morning, townspeople see muddy footprints with holes but no visible source. Okay. So one rainy morning, town people see muddy footprints with holes but no visible source. Now, Griffin sets his landlord's house on fire and departs London naked. Okay, so this story is based on London. Am I clear? It's based on London. Okay. So Griffin sets his landlord's house on fire and departs London naked. He departed London being naked. Okay. He steals clothes and food from a shop at night, then carries stolen money in a handkerchief hidden under his hat. Okay. So let's see. He steals clothes and food from a shop at night, and then he carries stolen money in a handkerchief hidden under his hat. Okay. Heading for a village called Epping. Okay, so the name of the village was Epping or Iping, whatever. He conceals himself with bandages, a hat, and dark clothing to avoid detection. So let's see. He conceals himself with bandages, a hat, and dark clothing to avoid detection, so that nobody can detect him. Okay. At the village inn, the landlord tries to frisk Griffin but finds nothing. Griffin signals by coughing. Okay, so Griffin signals by coughing, but the landlord is frightened and calls police. Okay, so but the landlord calls police. Meanwhile, Griffin invisible sneaks away to sleep. So Griffin, who was invisible, he tries to sleep over in a room. The police arrive and search the room, hearing noises as Griffin moves furniture to spook them. Okay, he tried to scare them. Okay, so spook, we can also write scare. Okay. In order to spook them. The police, confused and alarmed, seek the landlord's help because they cannot find the source of the disturbances. Okay, so the police was confused and alarmed, and they seek the landlord's help because they were not able to find the main epicenter of the disturbances or the noises. Okay, and the source of the disturbances. Now Griffin reveals his invisibility by removing his bandages. Okay, so how was Griffin found later on? He revealed his invisibility by removing his bandages. Okay. The constable panics at the empty coat and gloves on the floor and runs away. Okay, so the constable panics at the empty coat and gloves on the floor and runs away. Okay. Now Griffin then escapes back into the countryside. So this is the whole story. It's a very easy story to remember actually, and very easy question answers also. Take a screenshot and we'll move further on. Okay. So the next topic is the making of a scientist. Okay, let's see. So this is basically a biographical chapter. Okay, a biographical chapter tells us how Richard Albright, an American scientist, who was an American scientist, developed a passion for research from childhood. Okay, so he was an American scientist who developed a passion for research from childhood. Okay. Even as a young child, Richard would collect butterflies, labeling them meticulously. Okay, so he used to collect butterflies and he used to label them meticulously. By second grade, he had gathered 25 species. Okay, so by second grade, he had gathered 25 species. Okay, 25 species, spurred on by his mother's encouragement. Okay, so his mother used to encourage him a lot in his studies or in his research works. Okay, so spurred on by his mother's encouragement, she even gave him a book on migrating butterflies. Okay. In 8th grade, he entered a science fair with an experiment on a disease affecting caterpillars. Okay, so what happened in the 8th grade? In 8th grade, he entered a science fair with an experiment on disease affecting caterpillars. Okay. After trying to raise them, he got no results but still won a prize. Okay. Later, while a high school sophomore, Richard conducted experiments on insects' hormones. Okay, he started conducting experiment on the hormones of the insects. Okay, so that's the thing. Later, while a high school sophomore or grad, Richard conducted experiments on insect hormones. Now, Richard observed spots on pupae and thought they might indicate hormone activity. Okay, so Richard observed spots on pupae and thought they might indicate hormone activity. Am I clear? Okay, please let me know if I am audible to you guys or not. His experiments confirmed the spots were related to hormones and he won first prize at the International Science Fair. He won the first prize at the International Science Fair, earning a scholarship to the Research Institute of Advanced Study in Baltimore. Okay, so he also got a scholarship to the Research Institute of Advanced Studies in Baltimore. Okay. Richard then attended Harvard for college, where he continued excelling. Okay, so he started to excel in his college also. He went to the Harvard. Okay, that's a very prestigious college, right? Harvard for college, where he continued excelling. The tone of the chapter is factual and inspiring. It recounts Richard's childhood curiosity, persistence in research, and increasing success, showing how he made himself into a scientist through his early adventures and discoveries. Okay, so I hope it's clear. The chapter is very easy actually. It is factual and inspiring. Okay. It recounts Richard's childhood curiosity, persistence in research, and increasing success. Okay, so I hope we are clear with this chapter and we can move on. Okay, let's take a screenshot. Let us move on to the necklace. Okay. So moving on to the necklace, this is a very, very, very good story, and believe me, guys, trust me, you guys will never feel bored of reading this story. Okay, I have read it when I was in class 10. Now you guys are reading this also. Okay, let's start. So this story is written by Guy de Maupassant. Okay, Guy de Maupassant's story follows Matilda. Okay, so okay. So there is a mistake. Let me clear it. A small typo, guys. So her name is basically Matilda Loisel. Okay, let's start. So Guy de Maupassant's story follows Matilda Loisel, a beautiful but discontented young wife of a modest government clerk. Okay, of a modest government clerk. Okay, so here also Matilda feels she belongs to a higher social class and is unhappy with their simple life. So Matilda, she was not happy with her husband being a clerk. She was so beautiful, so gorgeous that she never felt very happy in her life. Not even in her father's house, and right now after marriage, not even in her husband's house, okay, who was a clerk. So she was unhappy with a simple life. When her husband brings home an invitation to an elegant ball. So do you know ball? So ball is basically a party. Okay. So ball is basically a party organized by the very rich and sophisticated peoples of England or the Western countries. Okay. इंडिया में ये सब नहीं होता है. Okay. So her husband, Matilda's husband, Mr. Loisel, he brings in home an invitation to an elegant ball, which Matilda refuses to go. Okay, so Matilda refuses to go to the ball party. Why? Because she has no fancy clothes or jewelry. Okay, are we clear? Okay. So now she had no fancy clothes and no fancy jewels to her. Okay, and that's why she was not willing to go to the ball party also. Now let's see how she went to the ball party and let's continue the story. To appease her, her husband gives her money for a new dress and suggests she borrow accessories from her wealthy friend, Ma'am Forestier. So this is basically Madame Forestier or Forestier. Matilda chooses a glittering diamond necklace from her friend's collection. Okay, so Matilda chooses a glittering diamond necklace from her friend's collection. Friend's collection, and that night she enjoys being admired at the ball. She enjoyed being admired, okay, at the ball. Returning home in the early morning, she discovers the necklace is gone. So when they were coming back to their home after the ball party, she discovered that the necklace was completely lost. It was not with her anymore. Okay, and that was very expensive to her also. Okay, discovers the necklace is gone. They search everywhere but find nothing. To replace it, the Loisels borrow a huge sum and buy an identical necklace for 36,000 francs. Okay, 36,000 francs. So this is basically the currency, francs. Matilda works years in debt, living in poverty. Finally, after 10 years, Matilda learns the truth. Forrester reveals that the original necklace was a fake of little value, costing only a few hundred francs. Okay, so now this is the plot twist. Okay, let's see. So after 10 years, they finally realize or get to know about the real secret or the real truth after 10 years. Matilda learns the truth. Madame Forrester reveals that the original necklace was a fake of little value. It was a fake one of little value, costing only a few hundred francs. This devastating revelation shows the extent of Matilda's suffering for a vanity. Okay, so this is a moral. That's a moral story also. This devastating revelation shows the extent of Matilda's suffering for a vanity. Okay, suffering for vanity. So, the time. To be Matilda. So this will be Matilda, not Matilde. Okay, so this is a typing mistake. Okay, don't judge us on behalf of this. Okay, peace. I hope the story is clear to all of you guys. Okay, now let's move on to the next topic, which is Bholi. Okay, so Bholi is a very good story, and the protagonist of this story, Bholi, is also Bholi in real life. Okay, let's see how she is Bholi. So this is written by K.A. Abbas. Bholi by K.A. Abbas is the story of a shy and neglected girl named Sulekha. Okay, so a shy and neglected girl named Sulekha. So Sulekha was her real name. Sulekha was the real name of Bholi. We have to remember this name also. Okay. Called Bholi, who suffers from a cleft lip and later smallpox. So she had suffered cleft lip and later smallpox, causing her to stammer and lose confidence. So Bholi or Sulekha used to stammer a lot. Okay, stammer and lose confidence. Her life changes when a kind school teacher encourages her to study and helps her gain self-respect along with self-confidence. Okay, like all of us need a lot of motivation and a lot of self-confidence to carry on in our day-to-day life and in our and to endeavor our goals. So that's how Bholi's school teacher had encouraged and motivated her. Now let's see. As Bholi grows educated and confident, her parents arrange her marriage to Vishambar Nath. Vishambar Nath, an old and greedy man. So this is the thing. So Vishambar Nath, Bholi's bridegroom, he was a very old and a very greedy man also. Okay, so as this happened earlier also in the Indian society, minor girls were given marriage, or their marriages were arranged to a guy or a old uncle. Okay, actually, so this was a societal rule at that time. Okay, so we will talk about this later on. Now we'll focus on this. And greedy man, on the wedding day, Vishambar demands extra dowry. So Vishambar demands extra dowry on the wedding day after seeing Bholi's pockmarks and threatens to cancel the marriage. Okay, so after Vishambar Nath discovers Bholi's pockmarks, he demanded extra dowry. Okay, and he also threatens Bholi's father to cancel the marriage. Now, gathering courage, Bholi firmly refuses to marry him, declaring she will not tolerate such insult. Okay, now look at here, gathering courage. Okay, so as we know that Bholi was a shy and a neglected girl. She was a shy girl. Okay, because she used to stammer a lot. So after that, she had to gather a lot of courage and confidence in herself to call out this. Now, gathering courage, Bholi firmly refuses to marry him, declaring she will not tolerate such insults. Okay? Such insults. Supported by her teacher, Bholi decides to remain unmarried and dedicated her life to teaching. So, Bholi was supported by her teacher. Okay? By her teacher, Bholi decides to remain unmarried and dedicate her life to teaching, choosing self-respect and independence over a humiliating marriage. Okay. The story highlights the power of education in transforming lives. Okay, so this is very important. So this is the thing. The story highlights the power of education in transforming lives. Okay, I hope we are clear with this chapter also. Let's take a screenshot and we will move on further. Okay, so we are at the last chapter, the book that saved the earth. Okay, I hope this is the last chapter. Let's see. Yeah, this is the last chapter. Okay. In this whimsical play set in the future, a historian recounts how Martians attempted an invasion of Earth in the 20th century. Okay, so in the 20th century, the people of the Mars, the Martians, attempted an invasion of Earth. Okay, the Martians, led by mighty chief think tank and his crew. Okay, so the Martians were led by the mighty chief think tank and his crew, apprentice Noodle, Captain Omega, etc. Okay, so we have the mighty chief think tank and his crew, apprentice Noodle and Captain Omega. There are also many. Okay. Come across a public library filled with books. Confused, they initially think the book might be food. So the Martians were confused and they thought that the books were food. Okay. They are assuming the books as food. Okay. We just simply cannot do anything. So here, think tank orders Sergeant Op. Okay, so there is another sergeant also, Sergeant Op, to try a book, but it tastes awful, which is an obvious matter, right? Noodle then suggests listening to it, but they hear nothing. Finally, think tank concludes the book must be meant for reading. Okay, so after Noodle suggests listening to the book, but eventually they couldn't hear anything, Mr. Think Tank concludes the book must be meant for reading only. Okay. Taking intelligence pills to enhance their understanding, they read aloud a copy of Mother Goose. Okay. So taking intelligence pills to enhance their understanding, they read aloud a copy of Mother Goose. Okay. A copy of Mother Goose. When they come to the rhyme Humpty Dumpty, they recognize themselves in the illustrations and realize that humans can see through them. Okay, so they recognized themselves in the illustrations and realize that humans can see through them also. Okay, horrified think tank decides to abort the invasion. Okay, so he decided to abort the invasion or to cancel the invasion, and the Martians retreat. They went back to their planet. Okay, and the Martians retreated. In the historian's words, a simple children's book, through the act of being read, saved the earth. The tone is light and imaginative. Okay, so according to the historian, he's saying that a simple children's book, through the act of being read, saved the earth. Okay, act of being read, saved the earth. The tone is light and imaginative, using humor and irony to show that knowledge can prevent catastrophe. Okay, so knowledge can also prevent catastrophe. We have to remember that. The tone is light and imaginative and using humor and irony to show that knowledge can prevent catastrophe. Hope we are clear with this chapter and all the chapters. Please take a screenshot. Okay. So, as I have told earlier, if you guys have any problem regarding any of the topics, then please let us know in the comment section. Okay. Now, okay. Okay, now we have the question pattern, the PYQ type 1. Let's see from the supplementary reader. Okay, so we are getting the first one from the book that saved the earth. So this is basically an extract So these are extract based questions. Okay. So the historian is saying that you haven't heard about the Martian invasion of 2040. Okay. What do they teach children nowadays? Well, you know the invasion never really happened because a single book stopped it. What was the book, you ask? A noble encyclopedia? A tome about rockets and missiles? A secret file from outer space? No, it was none of those. It was. But here, let me turn on the historiscope and show you what happened many centuries ago in 2040. So she turns on projector and points it left, spotlighting on historian goes out. Okay. So this is the question that we have over here. What does the pause indicated by the dash in the line? It was, but here let me turn on the historiscope and show you convey. Okay, so let's see. So basically they are talking about this one. So they are just asking whether if you guys are aware of this sign or not. What is it conveying over here? So there are some options given over here and these are the answerable options. So you guys have to answer only within these options. Okay. Next one. How do the stage directions such as historian turns on projector and spotlight on historian goes out contribute to the atmosphere and understanding of the scene in this part of the play? So if you guys don't know about stage directions, let me show you. So these are basically the stage directions given over here. These directions are particularly given in any drama. Okay. So whenever you guys are reading any drama, you can find these stage directions. Okay. So they are just asking, what does these stage directions mean, or how does they contribute to the essence of the play? Okay. Now moving on to the third question. Select the option that correctly completes the following. Okay, so we have to select the options over here. And the fourth one over here. What emotions is the historian most likely conveying with two phrases? Dusk, dusk. Okay, so we have to answer these only. These are the questions carrying 1, 2, 1 and 1. Okay, I hope we are clear with this. Now to the next one. Okay, so these are basically optionable. We are getting options, right? We can write any two out of these three. Okay, about in around 40 to 50 words. Okay, let's see. So how does the necklace illustrate the significance of honesty as the key element for leading a happy and stress-free life? We have to answer according to the story, the necklace, and we have to give the situation of Matilda over here also, and then we have to explain all things. Briefly evaluate the validity of the adage. Values are caught, not taught, in the context of the relationship between Anil and Hari Singh in the thief story. So we have to answer it likewise also. We have to give description of what Hari Singh did and what Anil did later on with Hari Singh. We have to give all these dimensions to this answer. Okay. Now going back to the third question. Griffin's experiences moments of comfort and normalcy while being invisible. How do these fleeting moments impact his sense of identity and his actions? Throughout footprints without feet. Okay, so we have to write about Griffin's experiences regarding his invention. Okay, so now let's move on to the next section, which will carry you 6 marks. Okay, so moving on, we have answered any one of the following two questions in about 100 to 120 words. Okay, so as I have told you earlier that even it is written that 120 words, we can take the leverage of 130 or 135 words, but we will try our level best to keep it within 110 to 120 words. Okay, now let's see the questions. The first question: how does the author use the narrative technique of misdirection in The Midnight Visitor to enhance the suspense and the story's unexpected ending? Okay, so this is a very nice question. So here we have to talk about the narrative techniques. Okay, the narrative technique which has been mentioned over here of misdirection in the story The Midnight Visitor. Okay, so we have to think about the narrative techniques also over here, right? Because boards can give you some questions like these also. We have to be prepared for all these questions too. In order to enhance suspense in the story's unexpected ending. Okay, and the next question, comment critically on the role of the surgery in the triumph of surgery. Okay, so we have to comment critically on the role of the surgery in the story The Triumph of Surgery. Now remember one thing, whenever this word shows up, we have to answer accordingly to this word, right? Like there are a lot of students who would comment on the surgery in the story The Triumph of Surgery, but we have to think of one thing, that the board is asking, or the question is asking us to answer it critically. We have to answer as a critique. We cannot answer as a mere student or as a mere audience. We have to answer as a critic. So we have to think about our choice of words and our diction also. Okay, so I hope the whole video is a very informative one, and it will help you guys develop new skills while writing answers. So please don't forget this thing. Okay, the gift of Christmas, boards mein full marks. I'm Kishore Das taking your leave, and will meet you soon. Bye.